All right, welcome back to another episode of the Birmingham Rental Investor. I am your co-host Spencer Sutton with Matthew Whitaker, and we are really excited to have one of Birmingham's legends, an investor legend, with us. We have Walter Baker on the show to share his insights into this to our real estate market. And Walter, just thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I don't know if I like that word legend. It sounds like I'm old, really old.
Well, one of the interesting things, Walter, is I've always been impressed by you. I always feel like you always had it figured out, especially when I was first getting into the business. I dare say I was a little bit intimidated too by you when I first got in the business because you've always really understood this business very well. So I'm super excited to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. I'm always happy to talk about real estate.
Yes.
You're talking about, uh, what I did. I can remember going to a meeting, an investor meeting, and a guy coming over from Mississippi. His name was Scott Britton. I don't know if he's still in the business or not, but I remember him. He started out his speech with, I'm here to talk to you about lifestyle, not about making money. And that had a profound effect on my wife and I. We heard that and we thought, well, that's what we're looking for is lifestyle. Money's great, but you can have two Learjets and two yachts and not be happy. So to me, that's what real estate's all about, lifestyle.
Let's talk a little bit about how you got in the business. You've been doing this a long time. Tell us what prompted you to get into the real estate business to begin with?
Well, I went through I have a degree in engineering, but I got into business development fairly early on, basically technical sales and marketing, because there's a lot of money in it and I enjoyed it. It wasn't the same old thing working from a cubicle every day. You're out and about meeting people and trying to develop business for, very mainly software companies and things of that nature. So I went through the dot-com era, and right after that got into when the high tech was booming, and got into companies which were venture funded, where we got stock options and a chance to get super rich. Well, all of those things were playing out in a year and a half to 2 years, and the business was getting, in the high tech industry, extremely volatile. Technology had come along to where a lot of stuff was becoming commoditized. It didn't need help to promote. It was more like big marketing machines like an Amazon or someone like that. So I had toyed with trying something on my own forever, but it just seemed like a lot harder work than what I was having to do. But I knew I had read about real estate, seemed like all my life, from the time I could read, and how so many people, even if they did not make their money in real estate, they migrated to real estate in terms of holding their money and investing. And even the super rich in Hollywood, most of them own property all over the place. That's where a lot of them stash their money. So I was aware of that. And to be honest with you, I sleep real well and always have all my life, but a couple of times a year, I can't sleep at night. I just stay up all night. I'll usually go watch TV, info commercials, and things like that. And literally about 20 years ago, I'm watching an info commercial about real estate. And I took my wife over to one of these half-day seminars over at a hotel where they try to lure you in, to get into their program and spend big bucks.
Yeah.
We didn't do it with that particular company, but it set me on a course to research. Within a couple of weeks, I knew I wanted to go to a seminar. In my case, I was going to drive over to Atlanta and attend that. And the seminar appealed to me. It cost a lot of money, but it appealed to me. And we basically never looked back from that point on. Started going to multiple seminars and learning different facets of the business and the different tactics of real estate. And that's kind of how it all started.
What did that particular seminar teach you, and how quickly after that first seminar did you buy your first property?
Well, that's a great question. Um, I say after that first seminar, a month later, I bought a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in Northeast Lake. Now, you guys are from here, so you know where that is. Not a place where most of us would want to live unless we have real good bulletproof vest and a few weapons of our own. But I took that property, I wholesaled it to another investor for $9,000, and I literally quit my job. I left my position about 2 days before I had that check, before I actually closed on it. I do not advise anybody doing it that way. But we had been attending seminars on weekends, kind of getting ready for it. And I basically just set aside about $100,000. And I told my wife, I said, we burn through this, I go back to work, or we build on it and we keep doing this. Well, that $9,000, we did not book another deal for like 7 months. So at the end of 7 months, we had a big short sale my wife had worked on that was worth just a tad less than $97,000 net to us. And in the next 6 weeks, about another $200,000 worth of business broke. So we never looked back from that point on. But I like to tell that story because so many people quit between month 1 and month 7.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people, and I've seen it in our coaching program, some people it takes a full year, and some people even a little bit longer before things really start to happen. The majority of people that get into this business will drop out after just a few weeks or a couple of months. They don't wait long enough for it to happen.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, talk about your mental mindset during that time. Month 1 versus month 7. Do you recall if doubt crept in? Should I be doing this? Or because you had kind of set an end, I'm only going to burn through this $100,000, do you still have confidence that, well, if it doesn't work out, then I can always go back and get a job?
Well, I had I guess I always had good jobs, which meant you had to work hard at the job. I mean, they were high paid positions, but I mean, they expected a lot from you. So I come out of the corporate world thinking that a 75-hour week was normal. All right, that was a benefit to me. I'm too lazy to do that now. I couldn't do it. But my wife was of the same demeanor. I mean, she had worked in sales positions and different corporate positions. So we were really times 2 working 70, 75 hours a week. During that 7 months, I could see things. It looked like they were going to happen, but you're not a normal person if you don't have some doubt, that this is going to all fall apart and it's not going to work. I kept all my contacts during that 7 months, so I wasn't 100% sure by any means. I stayed in touch with friends of mine that I knew I could land wherever they were, if nothing else, if it did not work out. And I've always been a fairly religious person, but I can tell you I was probably praying more during that 7 months than normal. So, you're not human if you don't have some doubt.
So let me ask you, because you mentioned you wholesaled your first deal, you made that first $9,000. You had another deal that was a short sale. So you were doing, your strategies were kind of mixed in, right? So you probably had been attending all these seminars. You got a lot of really good information on these different strategies. So what all were you doing? And then how did you maybe land on like long-term rentals as the core strategy for wealth building?
Okay, these are great questions, guys. My wife kind of honed in on short sales. She had the ability to work with bankers, accept rejection, talk to them the way that they were expecting to be, spoken to. And so she was just generating opportunities, but I was kind of the guy out in the field looking at the properties and, deciding how much repairs they needed. And we were both trying to figure out what the market values were of the properties. And that's essential in this business. You have to know your market, what a house will sell for, what it will rent for, what your returns are, that sort of thing. But, we had 7 or 8 things that we were doing all at one time. sort of, I guess you say, multitasking, which is really impossible. But you learn how to dwell on something for a couple hours and then switch over and figure out something else. But we had all kinds of opportunities that we were working, not knowing what was going to happen first, second, or third. But when it started happening, everything started working. And but the way that we got into rentals, going to the association meetings, I started noticing the guys who were flipping houses like me for cash. And we were all excited and everything, and some of them were making some good money, but we were all like, I guess, like ADHD. We were like hyper and ready to go the next day. It's the way we find our next big deal. The guys that own like 30, 50, 100 rentals, they were just like easy going. They're talking about where they're going out to eat after the meeting and talking about their fishing trips and their hunting trips. And so, I kind of recognized that. And one of the things that my wife and I did is we would identify an investor or an attorney or a real estate agent or a property manager or somebody that we felt like been around longer than we had, knew more than we knew. And we would take them to lunch, at least one of those people a week, if not several. One of the people we took out was Archie Phillips. Archie passed away, I guess, about a year and a half or so ago, but he owned, like, at the time, I think 107 houses, 33 real estate places, and multiple acres of land out in Shelby County that he used for hunting and whatever he wanted to do on them. But we were sitting down with lunch for him one day. He says, are you holding on to anything? And I said, no, we're flipping it all for cash. And he says, well, let me ask you something, or let me just share with you. He said, when you get up tomorrow, you have to make sure you go to work and keep on going. And if you want to take a trip to Europe for 3 weeks or a month, you're going to be hurting when you get back. He says, I can go away for a month and I don't even have to call in hardly. He said, you might think about investing in some real estate that you hold on to make your life easier on down the road. And boy, I went home that night and those words resonated. One of my biggest regrets, and we do have some regrets from this business, is that I didn't hold on to more of those properties that we sold and flipped early on. I wish I had them now. I heard one of the wisest men in concerning real estate I've ever spoken to is a guy named Peter Fortunato out of Tampa. And I heard him say one time, I wish I had never sold a single house. And I think he started when he was like 17. Wow. So he said he wished he'd held on to every single house he'd ever bought.
It's kind of like the Warren Buffett way of investing. You're buying for the long term, just buy it, hold it for forever. Talk about the transition from being a house wholesaler, a house flipper to a rental. Like, was there a change in mindset that had to happen? You obviously probably still flipped some, because I know you still do today. Talk about that transition and how you generated the cash and bought these rentals.
Well, first of all, we did the same strategy in that we looked at the guys that had a lot of properties and seemed really happy, and we hung around them as much as we could. And we invested in them. Like I never took them to lunch or dinner or took them to play golf or anything like that to where I didn't pay for it, insist on paying for it. And just really try to do something for them since they were generous enough to spend their time and their expertise with me. So, we were hanging around those people, but now we were flipping houses and then taking the cash. We were making an average about $41,000 per flip. And we were taking a little more than half that money and buying a house with it. Now I had some money stored up too, but we were doing about 4 to 8 flips a year at that time. And we were buying 4 to 8 rental houses per year. So we built it up very quickly, and we turned some private lenders that we had that were doing the retail investing with us into rental investors. In other words, long-term money. And so we were borrowing money for them, but when I would do a flip, I would try to pay them off very, very quickly. So that's a lot of how we accumulated our rentals. And then when we got up to about 30, 35 properties, there was enough operating cash. The rentals were generating enough to buy another property. So we're just kind of clicking along like that. And I just kind of became familiar with the rental aspect of the business. It was like another arrow in the quiver. I didn't quit doing the flips or the short sales or anything like that.
Talk about, you mentioned education, being around people that are successful, people that want to do what you do. Talk about the value of education and how you've gone about through your career investing, continuing to invest in yourself from an education standpoint.
I had learned from, I lost a lot of money in the stock market in about 2000, 2001, whenever they had the big reset.
Yeah, the internet bubble.
Yeah. So I lost a lot of money because, frankly, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just riding the wave, listening to, the CNBC or whatever, financial channels, and, just riding the wave. But when it tanked, I didn't know what to do. I didn't study it. I never went to a seminar on how to invest in the market. And it bit me bad. So when we did get into real estate, I told my wife, I said, I think education is going to be the key if we don't educate ourselves. So we went to a lot of seminars. The problem with seminars is that they're not connected. So you got one little aspect of the business, but then you got marketing to figure out how to get this opportunity to apply that strategy. And none of those things are tied together. That's part of the reason we came up with our mentoring program, is to tie it all together. That's kind of tough about this business. I think that's why a lot of people go into coaching programs, to where they're kind of spoon-fed, what the next step. In my opinion, I know that we could not have done any of this business without educating ourselves. And that was obviously a lot of reading. I am a voracious reader. I'm a speed reader. I do a lot of reading, but also a lot of seminars. At the time we were going through seminars, most of the coaching programs were about getting your act together or getting you motivated. We didn't need that. We never entered one of those. We were motivated because we wouldn't eat if we didn't generate some money. So we never suffered from that. But I think education is critical. And anybody that goes out there, I call them crop dusters, because they fly by the seat of their pants. And as one seminar teacher said many years ago, I'll never forget it. He said, "You're going to go to a seminar one way or the other. Your attendants may take you to their seminar, and that's what you don't want. You don't want to go to
That's pretty good.
a professional attendant."
Yeah. That is good.
Talk about, give me two of your favorite real estate investing books.
Well, we started with Ron LeGrand, and Ron doesn't know me from Adam. And if I pass him on the sidewalk, I'm not sure I would remember him either. But he has a good book, something like, How to Create Millions Through Real Estate or something. You just look up Ron LeGrand, you'll find his books.
And we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
We'll look it up and put it in the show notes for everybody.
So he had a good book, and then there was there's so many now. The Bill, I want to say Bruncheck, put one together on wholesaling. That was a real good book. I've read every real estate book you guys have probably ever heard of. And then after real estate, I really started focusing on marketing. And so I really got into reading a lot of marketing books. I read almost everything Dan Kennedy ever wrote. Mm-hmm. He's just a direct marketing guru. And I've gone and heard almost all those guys speak, been to their seminars. And
I think there's a Dan Kennedy course right behind me, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Don't you have one right behind me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a 2-day seminar, and he then took it and sold all the recordings in a big, online course or whatever, and actually in CDs. So Walter, tell me a little bit about how so here you are, you've by all accounts have become successful. What always interested me when I first started going to these RIA meetings, these real estate meetings, is you would see that all the new people were sitting up front and all of the seasoned investors would kind of be in the back, all kind of talking with each other.
Right.
And
Laughing at us up
yeah,
front.
laughing at us, all the newbies. But that's where you were. You were in the back with Archie Phillips and all those guys. So talk to me about, how was that transition from doing all your deals? How did you get into actually coaching people? And because I'm sure you started to have people come up to you and start asking you, taking you out to lunch. So how did you develop your coaching program?
Well, a lot of it was by request. People were, would you mentor me? And I would say, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to come over to your house and follow you around for a week. And I go, no, I don't want to do that. So I just started trying to figure out, well, how can I help people? But I had, way back when, I had seen enough of network marketing to know that if somebody doesn't invest a whole lot of money, it's real easy to drop out. So I was trying to figure out a way to retain people if I had them. So I required, it wasn't like, you didn't have to mortgage your house to get into the program, but it was a little bit of cash to get in to keep you interested.
Mm-hmm.
And I just developed a program, and it evolved over time. I changed it over the years. It seemed like every 6 months I was changing the program. And we just, I basically started out by kind of doing what you guys were doing. I was recording lessons. In my case, I was just recording the lessons. I'd do an outline, record the lesson, and that would turn into a course that I would teach. And, we did it all. We didn't do it with video, but we did it all with everybody coming in on audio. And, I would go out and look at their home, their potential investments and things like that. And they were always looking for the golden words, which were, if you don't want this deal, I do. They would always move forward.
That'll get somebody to pull a trigger.
Yeah, they're like, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. And a lot of those guys, if they were wholesaling a house, they would wholesale it to me, and I didn't tell them that's a requirement that I have first dibs, but I was in a position to make the first offer. So that was good too. I got a lot of houses that my students actually found.
That's pretty awesome. Talk about the habits. I mean, you've got an engineering mind. You've brought an engineering mind, which is probably very process oriented. Talk a little bit about the daily habits of a successful investor, in your opinion.
Okay. That's another great question. I really don't think most engineers that I've known could not do this business. And, and what I mean by that is they tend to be real focused. They hone in on a problem and they'll dwell on that problem for 3 days if they need to until they get it conquered. And that's really not necessarily the demeanor that you want. We've had the most success we've had with our students, and we were always looking for a common denominator. And my wife and I would guess, when we bring somebody into the program, are they going to be successful or not? And more times than not, we were wrong because we didn't understand really what made success. And I tell people, if you're looking for a magic pill or one thing that you can do or one characteristic that you need to be successful, I'm sorry, there ain't any. It's a million little things. It's a million little things. I did see that people that had their own little business before, or maybe had worked a straight commission job somewhere where everything was kind of left up to them if they were going to eat or not. They did not have any issues really. And I'm not saying they didn't have any problems, but they were able to take this business and run with it. Whereas the person that might have, and there's nothing wrong with this, but if you went to work out of school for Alabama Power and you worked in a cubicle doing one little deal, that's only applies to the power industry, those people would tend to struggle. They might not have a good appreciation for time management and things like that. As far as what my wife and I did to make it successful, I think it's more just what should we be doing right now to generate income? And, you see so many people get online trying to understand markets in the middle of the day. when they in fact should be probably out driving neighborhoods and looking for stuff that looks vacant. I mean, because you can surf that internet at night while you're watching your favorite TV program. And a lot of it is just time management and just trying to remind yourself constantly, what am I doing right now that really matters?
Yeah, Gary Keller wrote a book called The One Thing, and that's exactly his point is what one thing can I do now, which makes, and this is me paraphrasing, all other things either not needed to be done or a lot easier. And so it's working on the highest leverage thing. And you're exactly right. It's easy to get bogged down on the internet and play on the internet when
Yes.
people need to be out there. The other thing I think is important is, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It seems like what you found is the people that traded time for money when they worked are hard. It's hard because when you get into this business, you're working really hard and making no money. And
That's
the
right.
people that are probably from sales and commission or have owned their own business, they understand that there's going to be some period of time where you work and you make no money. In fact, sometimes you'll work in this business and you'll lose money, which
Yes.
I've done. And so you have to be willing to do that. And you're probably right. I mean, I would imagine your typical engineer would have a hard time losing money on a deal. And as we all know, if you get in this and you hadn't lost any money, you hadn't been in this thing very long.
True. Very true.
So
Well
speaking of that,
spoken.
talk about some big mistakes that you see newbie investors make, particularly ones that are focused on rental properties.
Well, I always tell people my biggest mistake is not doing this sooner. I should have done it when I should have started when I was 14 years old. So that's the number one big mistake. But I recognized about 4 or 5 years into this that, and I mentioned this earlier, we didn't hold on to properties going in. We were flipping everything. I got rid of some properties I'd love to have back now and part of my rental portfolio. And then also, I think in most places in America, the money in real estate is in the lower end, probably places where a lot of us would not want to live. It's in transitional neighborhoods and things of that nature. And so those were mistakes for us. As far as what I see people making mistakes, lack of education, just coming in thinking everybody I know is making money in real estate, and they come in and they start dusting crops. I mean, they don't know what the heck they're doing. And it's so easy to go out there and make a mistake. And I heard a guru out of Atlanta one time say, in real estate, you don't want to make a critical mistake your first few deals because it'll take you out of this business. Mm-hmm. You got to make sure you don't make any mistakes your first 10, 15 deals. Because then if you make a mistake, you can cover it. But right at first is critical. But it just depends on the personality, really, as far as what mistakes that you see. I see a lot of people going out working on their own houses. I don't know how you can make money doing that. And we had some of our students go through our program, and I would say, outsource all you can. Don't ever let me catch you, painting your own walls or laying your own tile or even managing your own houses. And I preached from the very beginning, find you a good property manager. If you got a lot of properties, maybe divide them up, in case somebody goes away or something. But I mean, that's 2 key words right there, property managers. And some of our coaching students are still managing their own houses, and whether they're willing to admit it or not, they're limiting their income. They're not focusing on what they could be good at, which is buying good deals, getting them financed, getting them paid off, and turning that into money down the road that you can live on. They're out there focusing on the wrong things. They think they're saving money, but they're not.
They're jumping over dollars to save dimes.
Exactly.
So what are some of the, when you're talking about, you just mentioned some of the low to moderate income areas for you, where would you, because we've asked every guest this, where would you be buying in Birmingham right now? Or where are you buying? What areas do you think are attractive for investors?
I own houses in almost everywhere of Greater Birmingham. Uh, I mean, I don't really have a favorite necessarily. There are pros and cons to all of it. I know you guys are aware of the recent changes in Center Point. Uh, it's almost comical now. You get a note from a wholesaler. Now I'm getting notes. Do you have any properties you would like to sell? You know, they're having a hard time finding properties. They're like, we're interested in all areas except Center Point. So that was kind of humorous to me. You know, Center Point passes these ordinances that are supposed to help them, and they're hurting themselves enormously. And I watched Tarrant do this a few years ago too,
Right.
where, you know, they basically are trying. I mean, the intentions are good, but they don't. The local governments are, you know, they're not necessarily great politicians or great at what they do, and they're just reaching for straws, and they're blighting their own neighborhoods. They don't even realize it. But I mean, I like Pleasant Grove, Hueytown, Midfield. Bessemer's huge. I like certain areas of Bessemer for rental. There's a lot of areas of Bessemer I don't. Same with Inslee. I don't do hardly anything in North Birmingham. I don't care for most of North Birmingham. There are a couple of exceptions. And, you know, I own properties in Center Point, unfortunately. But, you know, Roebuck, Huffman, great areas, Clay Chalkville. You know, and then I don't really own rentals in high end areas. Like I don't want a 2,500 square foot house that is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. That's a flip for me. I'd rather make 50,000 on a flip and buy 2 rentals that are generating $820 a month all day long. I mean, it's a better deal.
Talk about a typical day in your life. So you talked about lifestyle, and do you feel like you've arrived at that goal? Is your day? Are you worried about where you're going to eat and where you're going to play golf, like the early investors, or are you still out there running hard, trying to find more deals and grow your empire?
The most used app on my phone is the weather app. Everything revolves around the weather. Like we're doing this at 10:30 in the morning because I know I can play golf this afternoon, and it's all weather related. So I work probably about a day and a half a week now. I've got contractors that I use to revamp my rentals. I've got property managers managing my rentals. I don't have any hands-on directly with my tenants. That would be very rare. So I've got true freedom. I mean, I can schedule my work around the other things that I like to do. We are right now with the virus going on and everything, we're spending probably 80% of our time down at the lake. But even during regular times, we're probably 60-40 at the lake. But I mean, I have phone service down there, so I'm still kind of working, you know, for maybe 15 minutes at a time. But to answer your question, I can kind of do whatever I want to do now. If I get a lead, and I still put out advertisement, and if I get a lead that sounds like a good flip down in Pelham or somewhere like that, I'll get there as soon as I can. Now, if someone says, you know, I got you coming, I got 3 other people I'm talking to, you know, I'm probably going to say, well, why don't you call me after you talk to the other 3? And I'm not excited about going out there and competing on a price basis with anybody. And so I'm a little more nonchalant when it comes to that kind of stuff now. I don't jump out there and try to beat people. Half of them are going to be my students anyway.
Well, and that's a good question. Are you taking on any more students right now?
Well, I will talk to people that want to do it, but I got to kind of know they're all in. The very last one I did, just kind of, and you know, he made a lot of money, but I kept telling him, you can make twice this much if you just do this, and this, and I got real frustrated. So usually I tell my wife, I said, you know, after a student's done, I need a break for a month or 2. So I guess I'm on a break. And like I said, we got the virus going on right now, so I haven't been getting any calls lately.
Well, this has been great, Walter. I appreciate your time. Again, I do think we do think of you as a legend in this business. It seems like anytime Birmingham real estate investing comes up, the name Walter Baker comes up. So, congratulations on all your success, and congratulations on your day and a half of work each week reaching that goal. That's incredible, and I know a lot of people listening to this podcast would love to get to that point. Heck, a lot of people doing this podcast, i.e. me and Spencer, would like to get to that point too.
Well, I appreciate you saying all that. I will say, when I listen to a lot of podcasts now, because that's a great medium to learn. But one of the podcasts that I found a while back was about the Nashville singer-songwriter world. And this girl that's doing the podcast was talking about how people come to Nashville and they give it a try for a year or two and it doesn't work. And she said, you know what? This is a 10-year town. It takes 10 years. And I thought, bing. I thought, man, that's the way real estate is. It's like a 10-year deal. If you start collecting rentals after 10 years, you'll go, hey, this is pretty good. But in the second, third year, you're kind of wondering if this is something you should be doing. But once you arrive, man, there's just like no regrets. And it's better than flipping all the time. I mean, I like having flips. I like having a flip going all the time. I haven't done one in like a year, but if I had my druthers, I would just have them strung, to where you completing about 2 a year or something like that. And you just use that money to maybe buy you a new vehicle or something. I don't know, but, or buy more rentals. But rentals, I don't know. I'm so glad I did it, because I don't own oil wells or anything like that. I don't own any other passive income. So.
No, that's great advice. I mean, Matthew and I talk a lot. We were wholesalers back in the day, and it was so exciting to wholesale and make $20,000. But then guess what? You had to go out and do it again. I mean, you just had to keep going. So passive income, great advice.
I tell people, I like monthly money a lot more than I like lump sums of money. When I would put $40,000 into my pocket, I'd figure out a way to spend it. I was going to have a new wave runner or something, and it just gets ridiculous after a while. You got all these toys that you don't ever use, but monthly money is just like, wow, you can do so much good with it too. You can help people with it. Get involved in your church ministries and things of that nature. I mean, there's so much to it. And then one other thing I'd like to mention, we did have some people come into our coaching program. They really were not interested in real estate at all. It was all about just making a lot of money. They did not do that great. So I think you've got to be interested in real estate. You've got to like it. And my wife and I love it. So it's kind of like Steve Jobs said in one of his last speeches, find something that you love and do it, and you're probably going to be doing okay. So if you really like and love real estate, it's a great field. If you just want to do it for the money and you don't care anything about real estate, I think it's going to be a lot harder for you.
Yeah. Well, Walter, tell us before we hop off, how can people get in touch with you? Do you have a website? I mean, if somebody wanted to learn more, maybe even about your coaching program, how could they do that?
I'll just give you my email. That's probably the easiest way if they wanted to touch base with me. It's just walterbaker@me.com, like me and you, me.com.
Yeah.
That's an old Apple deal. So there's a Walter Baker, no spaces or anything, @me.com. And just, ask me what they want to ask me, and we can go from there.
Awesome.
And if I'm not on your wholesaler list, put me on there. Put my email on there, because I'd still buy houses from wholesalers too.
Awesome. Well, good deal. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you. Maybe we can see each other really face to face.
Yeah, maybe we can have lunch. That's right. It'd be great to have lunch when all this is over.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.